Leda, go ahead and you can start.
Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everyone. We'll give everything just a few minutes for people to join us. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We have a few people still logging in. We'll give it another minute or so. Yeah, I think we can get started now. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lada, and I have the privilege and honor to be your moderator today in this webinar about alternative energy for medical and community resilience. I'd like to welcome all of our special attendees from around the world, including from the government of Ukraine and the medical sector of Ukraine, and several countries worldwide, the Ukrainian diaspora community, including the Ukrainian World Congress, and our industry friends, both from the solar and the medical and surgical worlds. The special focus here is on Ukraine and the enormous challenges there in the medical and humanitarian sectors. You will hear about innovative uses of solar-based power technology crossing over from applications in disaster relief and from film and television uses into critical medical and surgical use and to power essential municipal services. This is a case study on resilience. While Ukraine faces many extreme challenges in defending herself from its warring neighbor, Russia, including major outrageous attacks on the power grid, and continuing to function and survive, Ukraine is faced with finding ways to provide reliable and consistent electric power to its citizens and institutions. In this webinar, our speakers will talk about their experience powering hospitals, field clinics, and much more in Ukraine through the use of solar+battery generators and mobile solar panels. You will hear an update on the city of Kherson, the damage there and recovery efforts, the power challenges that doctors and residents face in frontline areas, the differences between using gas generators and battery generators and how they can also work together, security concerns in these regions and how that affects power use as well, and how Ukrainian deployments of the solar+battery generators are going, even by first-time users, and what problems they're solving. Our guest today will be Dr. Dmytro Fedorenko, head of the ICU at the Mykolaiv Oblast Hospital, Ms. Halyna Luhova, city councilwoman and ex-mayor of Kherson, and Heidi Rickels, chairwoman of Power Up Ukraine, a Rotary initiative. But first, I have the honor to introduce the sponsor of this webinar, New Use Energy, which is headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. Paul Shmotolocha is CEO of New Use Energy and is based in Washington State. Paul is an expert in foreign relations. Sorry, I have to find my screen again. Foreign relations and international trade, having studied at Georgetown University, Dartmouth University's Tuck School of Business, the London Business School, and Universidad de Chile. Paul is also a US Army veteran and a bilingual Ukrainian American, and so dedicated to helping the people of Ukraine at this crucial time. Since Russia's big invasion of Ukraine in early 2022, New Use Energy, with its expertise in disaster relief, has responded with many installations in Ukraine via generous donors and partners in Ukrainian hospitals, communities, and at the front. Paul, could you please tell us about News Energy, the technology you have developed and that you deploy worldwide, and how solar and battery generators make a difference in Ukraine?
Thank you, Leda, and thank you all for attending. Not meaning here to do a sales pitch, but just to, these photos that you see here are representative of many of our deployments. We focus on building professional grade solar plus battery generators. That means they don't exclusively charge from solar power, but we make a solar first solution so that it can be prioritized. But it can be charged as well from generators, and then you can economize on gasoline by turning off the generators, or it can be charged from the grid and used as reserve, long-term reserve power. We work exclusively with very safe lithium iron phosphate batteries, and we build everything from small ultra portables to solar trailers. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight our commitment to Ukraine because we are different. We're not a Chinese portable power station company. We do build long-lasting renewable energy resilient solutions. Distributed power solutions very much help Ukraine build its energy security. And by distributed power, I mean you're not taking from a centralized generating source, but you have independent sources of power, for example, from solar panels, or it could be from small windmills or other devices. Ukraine is a priority for us. We design special products for it, and now we even build some of them in Ukraine. We are investing in Ukrainians. We have corporate functions that we've started to outsource to Ukraine in the marketing and engineering side. And we are building a long-term presence to be able as well to export those products that we develop from Ukraine to international markets. We service our products and support over 150 customers in Ukraine. Some examples listed there. And I do want to highlight, we give back to Ukraine with involvement in over $4 million of various technology-related aid and medical projects, such as rebuilding the IT infrastructure of a university in Kharkiv after it was destroyed by Russian missiles. I do want to highlight the next slide. Just the pain points. These are learning lessons that we have gathered over the past year and a quarter. In Ukraine, users of portable generators, they faced growing issues with fuel costs due to lack of budgets, especially in the medical realm. So many hospitals, especially those in places like Mykolaiv, Kherson, any frontline areas where they have to run generators frequently, they simply don't have the budget for fuel. They also don't have the budget for maintenance of people who have to maintain generators. When gas generators run a lot, they are mechanical, they need maintenance. They do break down, and as some people tell me in the East, there are even large piles of broken generators just because they run so much and they're in tough operating conditions. And it's also dangerous. So in the US, for example, we're growing in our popularity of relegating gas generators to a secondary role because people frequently have accidents with generators. The other issue is being able to use them indoors. There are a lot of security issues in terms of Russian drones being able to detect heat signatures from gas generators, noise they can detect, and of course you have fumes caused by generators, so you can't use them indoors. So some of the other issues we see in consumer grade power banks are really performance and durability, being able to use them in the field where they're not designed for long-term use. The form factors are more consumer oriented, not necessarily for use in field hospitals, for example, and tough military environments. And there are limitations on the solar panels. Using glass panels is really not advised anywhere near the front. I've seen some tremendous photos of clinics on top of where they use solar power on containers and they're all busted. So we do design special flexible solar panels which can survive shrapnel even being shot. So anyway, that's my introduction to some of the challenges that are faced, and I'll turn it over to Leda. Leda, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Paul, for that great introduction and for explaining some of the capabilities of the technology that you bring. I now have the honor of introducing our very first guest, Dr. Dmytro Fedorenko. Dr. Dmytro of Mykolaiv Oblast Hospital is Chief of Critical Care, the ICU division of the hospital, with some 95 staff reporting to him in a hospital with about 950 staff, which is the region's largest hospital. He is also a leading anesthesiologist for the region. The hospital is not only the major trauma center for the area, including for Kherson since its occupation and now the flood, but also all the medical and surgical specialties are based there, which can no longer operate in Kherson. This hospital also receives many combat wounded. After the hospital was struck by Russian missiles in the summer of 2022, in that war crime event, Dr. Dmytro undertook to establish autonomous zones within the 5 floors of his trauma center so that surgeries could continue and patients could continue to be cared for in the ICU. Dr. Dmytro will tell us more about the current situation in Mykolaiv and how the use of these mobile mini power stations has created reliability and predictability even when grid power and overall building power from a large diesel power station on the site cannot function. Because of his work in the ICU, we have asked Dr. Dmytro to join us via pre-recorded video. And so let's hear from Dr. Dmytro Fedorenko in Mykolaiv.
Так, я в лікарні, я завідувач відділення реанімації інтенсивної терапії. Крім того, я є обласним експертом з анестезіології по нашій, Миколаївській області. Мирний час був, то ми були фактично єдиною лікарнею на всю область, яка повноцінно могла приймати хворих з політравмою. Це де є поранення кінцівок, грудної клітки, живота, голови, тому що в нас є профільні відділення, які можуть охватити повністю все тіло людини, скажімо. В нас світло зараз не пропадало, воно до цього пропадало від обстрілів, тому що вони продовжують обстрілювати. І коли вони попадають, коли просто збивають щось, воно падає і взривається. Там по-всякому буває насправді. Плюс в нас проблема ще є з генерацією енергії. Вони дуже багато теплоелектростанцій взірвали. І в нас зараз часто споживання більше, ніж виробництво електроенергії. І деколи Румунія нам докидає мегавати, а деколи просто виключають планово. Десь місяць назад, то в нас знову планово виключали світло. Так, є, нема, на цілий день. Дивіться, те, що ви прислали, то зараз, моя реанімація і операційна, яка рядом з реанімацією, то вона повністю закрита. Тобто, коли ви виключали світло, то його вистачає, якраз чітко. А в нас є ще операційне на першому поверсі, на 5-му, великі 2 операційні, і 2 малі на 3-му, на 4-му. Тобто, якщо ви туди хоча б ще по одному вийдете, то це добре. Обладнання дуже нам стало у пригоді, тому що в нас багато поранених, як цивільних, так і військових, і вони, я завідуючий реанімації, і в мене майже всі хворі, це апаратні хворі, яким проводиться штучна вентиляція легень, і до них підключено монітор пацієнта, дозатори, по яким йдуть завжди медикаменти кожну секунду, кожну хвилину. І стабільне електропостачання – це саме важливе, що може бути для мого відділення. І коли в нас планово відключають світло, або воно пропадає непередбачувано, то я завжди можу переключитися на ці великі павербанки, і вони мене страхують і витягують від того, що хтось може просто не вижити, або щось станеться зі здоров'ям, бо не буде просто банально світла. Тобто я можу системи життєзабезпечення підтримувати завжди, 24/7. Це дуже круто, це дорого коштує, насправді. Супер, просто що світловий день маленький, в день воно, реально, годин 5, воно 6 добре працювало панелі, а далі вони переставали, заряджати.
Так,
тому що сонце низько йшло. Мережі, то я в першу чергу мережу підключав, щоб максимально наживити до повного. Що до 10 розставляться взагалі просто легко. Тому що в нас дуже у нас тільки співробітників 950 людей. Це у нас велика лікарня, дуже. Якщо порівнювати з усією областю, то у нас сама велика лікарня. У нас з фінансовою системою в 2023 році в Україні просто нема грошей. І виходить, що вони, ваші санкіти дають безкоштовну електрику, тобто нам і платити потім за неї не треба. Це дуже круто. Дизель-генератор, позаряджай його, купи ту солярку, оце все. У нас також вона взлетіла в ціні, вона дуже дорога. І, як щось стається, немає світла чи ще щось, і виникає дефіцит, тому що у нас більшість заправочних станцій без дизель-генераторів, вони просто перестають працювати. І коли не було світла, то і купити, декілька заправок працювало, на них закінчилось пальне, все, пального нема. І черги. А далі по талонам. А талони дають тільки військовим і поліцейським, все, більш нікому.
I'd like to thank Dr. Dmytro for joining us in this manner, despite his extremely busy schedule. And I want to bring to the attention of everyone just the level of destruction that is seen there. And can we imagine how many more healthcare facilities around the country are in need of more reliable power? So please, when you have questions for that category, let's hold all our questions until the end. And now I have the wonderful privilege to introduce to this audience today the incredibly resilient and unbreakable Halyna Luhova of Kherson, Ukraine. Halyna was acting mayor of the city and head of the military administration of the city during its brutal occupation by Russia, and literally was not able to even stay in her home nor in the same place for more than a consecutive couple of nights. Her story was featured in the New York Times and 60 Minutes as she continued to run the city and help its residents even while in danger herself. Halyna has also been a principal of a school in the region where she established green energy systems, including solar panels on the roof. She is an elected city councilwoman and continues to work all day long every day, delivering services and critical responses to the people and institutions of Kherson. Halyna will tell us about the humanitarian situation on the ground now, since the occupation and since the destruction that the city has suffered from the Kakhovka Dam being destroyed and the ensuing catastrophic flood. She will also tell us about the power situation there, the ongoing needs for electricity, and how the security and safety situation in the city, given ongoing Russian artillery strikes and Russia's drones and snipers targeting Kherson's city teams and humanitarian teams from across the river, how all of this makes delivery of critical services incredibly more challenging. Halyna will talk about problems with traditional fuel-based generators and how the alternative energy mobile power stations have impacted her city's teams and residents so far. Let's welcome Halyna Luhova, and please go ahead, Halyna.
Good afternoon, but today we have a good evening now in Kherson City. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be here with you on this webinar, and I want to describe some situation. I think not easy situation in our Kherson city. You know that our Kherson city was under the occupation of the enemy during 8 months, and on the 11th of November, we became again free. We were liberated. Thank you very much for our soldiers, for our army. It was the greatest day in the history of our country and in the history of our Kherson, and it was great for the citizens of the city because there are a lot of them stay here during the occupation period, and most part of them left the city. I want to say that 333,000 people we have on the date of 24th of February. But in the city, when it was deoccupied, we have about 80,000 citizens, but now we have less of them. I want to say that it was euphoria, but beginning from the 20th of November, it was the darkest days in the history of our heroic Kherson city, because it was shelling all the time, 24 hours a day. Every day, we've heard shelling with miners, artillery, and also mortars. And so, as a result, we have about 5,000 destroyed houses, among them, half of them private houses, and the rest are multi-story buildings. Also, we have about 150 killed people, among them 2 children, and also we have 408 injured people, and among them 15 children. So the situation all the time is very dangerous in the city. As they say, the trouble don't enter the house. There are some troubles enter the house. So our heroic Kherson city and our heroic people, and in the whole the Kherson Oblast, face to face again with the next tragedy, with the next terroristic act is it's flooding. On the 6th of June, the enemy blown up the Kakhovska Dam. So a lot of houses were flooding in our Kherson city. Kherson is situated on the right bank of the river. It is situated higher, and the left bank of the river, the citizens is situated lower. So some parts of our city were flooded. I want to say that about 3,000 houses were flooded in the city, and 97 multi-story buildings. It is the ground floor and the first floor of these houses. You know, we have 3 regions in the city: Korabelny region, Suvorova regions, and the Dniprovsky regions. So the most destroyed and the most were flooded Korabelny regions. It's a part of Hydropark, Naftohavan, Island, Shuminsky. The situation was very dangerous. During the first day, we evacuated more than 1,000 people. They live in the hospital, schools, and kindergartens. Also, after several days, they went to their relatives in the city. Some of them left the city and went to the other cities of Ukraine, and some of them went to abroad. About 16,000 people were in dangerous situation. Also, we have some flooding in Antonivka. It's Dniprovsky region. Sadove, it's Dniprovsky region. It's Starostinsky regions. Also, some part of Stepanivka Starostinsky regions and Kamyshany Starostinsky regions. Now, I want to say that we have all these places empty. We don't have any water there. but people cannot live there in their houses because some of they were made from clay and they disappeared under the water, and some were made of blocks, and then you could see only how blocks were flying on the river. I think that in the nearest future, we together only with the help of all world community will be able to decide the problem that to help people with the houses. We need some program how we can together help our people. Also, I want to say that a lot of critical infrastructure were flooded in our city. I want to say that 31 objects of city water department were flooded. 7 of them were flooded the whole. 10 wells, 2 transport substations, 1 medical institution, 72 objects of services facilities, 12 enterprises, various form of owners. Also, as for the electricity situation, it is really very it's a phone. I'm on the phone and it's a call. It's very difficult situation as for the electricity because a lot of infrastructure objects were flooded, and 21 destruction substations for street lighting also were flooded, and were flooded 15 schools in our city. So now 23 multi-story buildings from 97 today with the gas. The situation as for the electricity in these multi-story buildings, there are no electricity, and it is very hard to repair it because we have all equipment under the water. So it is empty, but it is destroyed, and we can do nothing now that the people will have electricity. And the situation as for the water, also our city water department do some disinfection. These houses have technical water, and also our volunteers all the time give our people fresh water. We have, as for the fresh water, it's enough. The situation is okay. If we say about our Starostinsky region and the situation with our electricity, on these regions, Naftohavань, Hydropark, the part of island, Shuminsky, Sadove, Antonivka, Kindika, there are no electricity, and we don't have any chance to repair the electricity because the enemy from the left bank of the river, the distance between the right and left is very short, and we have all the time the shelling of this territory, and our specialists cannot do some repairing work there. So in these districts, we don't have the internet because all the air lines were destroyed, and the specialists of provider cannot repair these lines. So only one way we can decide the situation with the water on this territory and with the electricity. It's with the help of generator. I want to say thank you very much all our public organization, the United Nations organization, Red Cross, and a lot of other volunteers from all over the world that they help us with generators. These generators have different powers, so they need a lot of gas and a lot of oil, and also it's very expensive for our city budget. I want to say a few words about budget, that you can imagine what is the situation. Last year we have the budget of our city. It was 3.5 million hryvnias. This year we have 2.5 million hryvnias. We have this budget minus 1 million hryvnias. So all the private entertainments and public enterprises, and factories, plants are closed, and our budget doesn't have any taxes. It is a very difficult situation as for money in our region. So that you can understand, for example, in Antonivsky region, the territory where there are no electricity, we need that generator works several times in this territory. We need 1,500 tons of gas. It is about more than $1,000 as we're talking about money. It is too expensive, and the best way in this situation is solar power electrostation and panels. I want to say, if we say about several sides of this situation, we think first of all about the safety of the people, because that this generator work, people have to repair them, and it is not safety for people all the time move in these territories. Also, the specialists have all the time to take oil and to take gas, and all the time to be with these generators. And all the time we have a lot of drones in our sky, enemy drones. They all the time see how people move in the street, and people don't know if this drone hit to them or not. And these drones react to the sound of generator because they work very loudly. We have very was tragic situation in Antonivsky Starostensky region. It was shelling to our point of invincibility, and our Starosta Sergei was urgent, and our specialist Irina was urgent very much. Now she is in Mykolaiv in hospital. He is waiting for operation, and I think it will have the rehabilitation during a long time. So the people hit these loud generators, and the best way to change the situation, it's some kids, it magic box, it's solar power stations and solar panels. Now I want to say thank you very much for support, Leda, Pavlo, and the American company New Use Energy for your help, because more than 1 month ago, you send us 2 generators, and we use them in our Starostinsky regions, in our point of invincibility. People have a chance to be with the connection, to be with the telephone, to be in touch. But for example, as we say about Antoniivka, in Antoniivka, we have 30 streets, 31 streets. And I think, but now we have more than 1,000 inhabitants there. And can you imagine then 1,000 inhabitants all the time visit the point of invincibility? It is very dangerous because every time we have shelling there and we see the drones and drones see the people. It is very dangerous for people be all together in one place. And my decision in this situation is the next. It will be better, for example, if people from 6 streets have many point of invincibility, for example, this magic box or some kid in some garage or some basement, because people all the time in basement, in their houses, and they don't move in the street freely because all the time is shelling. They will have a chance to have some internet, but also we have some Starlink for it. And also they, with the magic box, with the help of magic box, or some kids also turn on the refrigerator. And people from all the streets can keep, for example, milk for children and some food, because it is very hot. And only the people have as humanitarian aids from our volunteers. So it will be, I think, the great decision. And I want to thank the warmest words, thank you, people all over the world who help us. I want to say thank you, Maria Report. I had a chance 3 times was on your radio program, and I had a chance to speak to people, to say about the terrible situation we have in our city. And I'm so impressed, your great heartful love to our people and your support. You're really fantastic people. You are the great because you believe to us, you support us, and your support, your help make us very strong. And we believe that we'll win in this war. We are sure. And only with your help and only with your support and your great heart, we'll have a chance to be free again, to be independent. So in the end of my story, I want to say that we'll win in this war with your help. And now I want to show the piece of work of my pupil when I was a director of Green School, which is situated in Antoniivka. Green School, it's unique school in Ukraine, as it is on built on green technology with the help of Finland government and also with the help of Nefco, corporation Nefco. It is with the solar batteries on the roof of this school. It is have some destroyings, but I think with support of your support and support of Finland government and the Nefco will repair it. But this is a piece of work, it's symbol of our country. It's the color of the flag of our country. And now you see the piece of metal of grades, artillery, and models. These metals killed our people, but our people in Kherson are invincible. And we believe that we'll win in this war. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your support. Our country, our Kherson have never forgotten about your help. We all the time will remember that you are reliable, that you with great heart of love. Thank you very much that you are.
Thank you so much, Halyna, for everything you have said and for your incredible courage and spirit and love for your people. We're with you and all the way to victory.
Sorry, I want to add 1 minute. My dear, I want to say that last Sunday, our Kherson city got 3 solar power stations and solar panels, and also magic boxes, and also sun kit, and also 1 solar panels. These solar panels and solar electric station now is situated in our children's hospital, and they will support our children, and also they is in their maternity ward. And I want to say the word thank you, especially we have a nice surprise for our children from you, my dear. We have TV set and PlayStation. It will be in a playing room for our children. And I think they will be happy sometimes to relax with this PlayStation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Halyna. This is such valuable information to hear about the difficulties that you're experiencing, and then your heartfelt words and your courage. Thank you again. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and then we can go back and have questions for Halyna and about the technologies she mentioned, including the magic box that she mentioned. Heidi Rickels is from Montana in the United States and has a master's degree and more than 20 years experience in international development and humanitarian aid. Heidi primarily focuses on water and sanitation issues in Africa. However, she recently became acquainted with a local Ukrainian refugee family in her area and immediately connected them to her Rotary international networks to try together to make an impact on the situation in Ukraine. Since December of 2022, she and New Use Energy have worked together to provide solar lithium battery powered generators to maternity and children's hospitals and wards in Ukraine. Heidi will tell us about how she became involved in Ukraine and in addressing power gaps in this humanitarian crisis and disaster. Heidi will tell us about her Power Up Ukraine initiative and its goals and why she chose this solar-capable technology over regular gas generators, and what Power Up has achieved so far in Kharkiv and in Kherson in the hospitals and neonatal units. She will also tell us about the plans for a massive scale-up of the Power Up Ukraine campaign. Heidi, please join us.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this panel. And just wanted to quickly introduce myself and give you context of where I'm from. I live in a small mountain town called Whitefish, Montana, up north near the Canadian border. I live there with my family. My husband is retired and we've lived here since 2020. However, I am still connected internationally through my involvement in Rotary International. Rotary is an amazing service network of about 1.2 million people doing humanitarian projects around the world. And because of my connection to Rotary, I'm able to be involved and make an impact all over the world. I was with my family at our very small church in downtown Whitefish when I met an amazing Ukrainian family. The Zinchenko family attended and after church presented their story. We met Yuri, Vitalina, and their daughter Anastasia, who were refugees that were brought over to the United States through a special U.S. immigration program called Uniting for Ukraine. They were sponsored by a local doctor, and they resettled in our area and were going around to various churches and organizations telling their story and speaking. And so that's when I first connected with the Zinchenkos. They told the story of the destruction of their city, how they had to flee very quickly, even from the first days of the war. As we know, waves of Russian airstrikes on critical infrastructure that seriously damaged the power grid led to widespread outages across the country. Ukraine faced an extreme challenge to provide reliable and consistent electric power to citizens, especially amidst a bitterly cold winter. Hospitals in Ukraine were under immense strain with influx of war wounded and damage to facilities. Vital medical equipment rendered useless when there's no power and many lives are at stake. Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city of 1.5 million, was one of the most heavily damaged cities in Ukraine, with the Russian border only 35 kilometers away. Yuri and Vitalina connected us with the Kharkiv Regional Clinical Perinatal Center. This was the maternity hospital where Vitalina gave birth to their daughter. It was established to provide qualified specialized obstetric and gynecological and neonatal medical care in the Kharkiv region. It has 200 beds. It sees about 100 patients a day currently, and 22 doctors are in that facility. The center specializes in complex childbirth. Many deliveries are carried out with extremely high risk. Since the outbreak of the war, expectant mothers are brought to the center in labor. They came from subways or from bomb shelters to give birth. In the operating room, the rooms were covered with mats and plastic sheeting to protect doctors and patients and newborns from broken glass. If there was no active bombing, births take place in the delivery room, but immediately after, the mother and child are taken down to the basement bomb shelter. If there is active bombing, the perinatal center's own bomb shelter served as the delivery room and children's intensive care unit. And you can imagine that situation. I was driving home in the midst of a bitterly cold Montana day and thinking about the Ukrainian people and the situation there. And I just had an idea about generators. I went home and I Googled Ukraine generators, and it brought up New Use Energy and connected me with Paul Shmotoloka, CEO and resilience enthusiast that you have already met. He's a Ukrainian American, and as I learned, also a former Rotary scholar. His father was a Rotarian. We connected immediately. I call him my new BFF, or one of my new BFFs. He has a passion for the people of Ukraine and shares my heart and the ability to make an impact. So through our vetted partners at New Use Energy, we connected to Rotary and let them know that they can rapidly deploy quality lithium battery-powered solar generators directly to critical points and facilities in Ukraine. We targeted the maternity hospital in Kharkiv, connected with the Rotary Club New Level and a Rotary Club of Evergreen, Colorado, who served as our fiscal sponsor. We were able to establish a quick campaign because New Use Energy was manufacturing their units in Germany and had a warehouse in Lviv, Ukraine. It was a supply chain already established, and they could quickly deploy to the facility. So we started the Power Up Ukraine campaign, a Rotary-led initiative. And our goal was to provide resilient power to critical facilities like hospitals, field clinics, and humanitarian hubs by equipping them with the SunKit solar generators. We knew this was a tested and reliable project. The existing supply chain in Ukraine was a major bonus. It was rapidly deployable. We had trusted local Rotary partners. It powers the vital medical equipment with uninterrupted backup power. And they provide installation, training, and support in country. We chose these solar lithium generators because there's no noise, there's no fumes, no expensive fuel is needed. It provides an uninterruptible supply. As you heard the doctor say, if you had a sudden power outage during a surgery, it automatically switches over. It's uninterrupted. Provides clean output, which is better for sensitive medical equipment. It's mobile. You can see the wheels. It's rapidly deployable. It has a longevity of 5 kilowatt hours and long-term use. So we delivered to Kharkiv within about a month and a half. We're able to raise money to deliver 2 SunKit units and a solar array to the hospital. We've received some local press from our efforts, and it further inspired us to continue this campaign. So we are moving on to phase 2, which is focused in Kherson. We had connected with Halyna. This just gives you an idea of Kherson and Kharkiv, where they're located and how close they are to the front lines. You heard about the dam and reservoir collapse and the results of that in the city of Kherson, the flooding of houses, buildings, ruined crops, flooded buildings and homes, threatening drinking water resources, displaced landmines, widespread environmental damage, and set the stage for long-term electricity shortages that we heard about. Rescue efforts began immediately, and we immediately began working with Halyna to assess the immediate needs and mobilize relief, including water purification supplies and solar. So delivered, as you heard, last Saturday and Sunday, our partners at New Use Energy delivered to a large clinical hospital in Kherson for the maternity clinic, children's ward, to power incubators, infant warmers, patient monitors, surgery rooms, and other critical pieces of equipment. But now we need your help for a scale up. Even more solar generators are desperately needed in Kharkiv, Kherson, and other frontline cities in Ukraine, as electricity for critical facilities is vital to power equipment and water pumps. Many hospitals are housing people displaced from their flooded homes, in addition to patients. We have the logistics in place. We just need to raise more funds to deliver the generators directly to the facilities. So the supplier in Lviv has SunKit units ready to ship to our partners as soon as the funds are raised. We have a GoFundMe campaign that runs through the Evergreen Rotary Foundation, provides a U.S. Tax-free way to contribute. You can either donate through GoFundMe directly or make direct donations via a check to the Rotary Club of Evergreen Foundation with the address here. I'll put that back up, but I just want to say thank you so much to New Use Energy, to Halyna, and all of our partners with the Rotary Club of Kharkiv New Level, Rotary Club of Evergreen, Colorado, and everyone who has contributed to this campaign so far. Please consider making a donation, pass this information on to other people. Please post this webinar on your social feeds, encourage others to contribute and be a part of continuing to make an impact for the people of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi, for your presentation and for all the great work that you're doing in Ukraine, and for your big heart for this incredible cause. I'd like to encourage the audience to prepare their questions if you want to submit them into the Q&A, or if anyone would like to, I believe we can take live questions as well if you'd like to request that. In the meantime, Paul, I wanted to ask you if you could just explain briefly what a magic box is that Halyna referred to. It's quite a rugged piece of kit that has come in very handy recently in Ukraine.
About it, it was actually nicknamed by a very brave medical technician at the front lines in Severodonetsk about a year ago, and it's simply a 2.5 kilowatt hour 1500 watt inverter solar generator, very robust, built in a very strong metal case. And this tier 1 clinic that was receiving civilians being wounded, Ukrainian and Russian soldiers, their generator kept breaking, and so he received the solar generator, he threw the panels on the roof, plugged it in, and he did us a little video, and he said, wow, this is a magic box. So it kind of stuck for us, and it's an honor to have such a brave man to have nicknamed it like that. So we kind of do that in his honor.
Thank you very much for that. So I'd like to, again, encourage our audience, if you'd like to enter a question, you're all auto muted for this webinar format, but we can take your questions on and read them off. I have one question. Halyna, if you could please answer this. How easy has it been to work with these new solutions, and how do people react when they have a solar charging station as opposed to the conventional gas station?
I want to say that people positive react to the solar power electric station and to the solar panels. They have a great eyes because they cannot imagine that it is possible in so dangerous situation when they here shelling all the day have the new green technology in our point of invincibility. They really very surprised and say thank you very much, because that something that was impossible, now it is possible, because we have a very hot and great hand of your support. So I think in the nearest future the situation will be more not so dangerous, and this solar power electric station and magic box and sun kits will help people more and more, and people, I think, will use them for their safety first of all, because really the generators work loudly and people are afraid because shelling and because of drones. And it is will be a chance to have more safety situation with sun kits and magic boxes. And if we'll have a chance to donate, people, I ask you very much, please donate and help us to have more and more sun kits and magic boxes, because our for example, city water department, our city electricity department, they all need all these power electric stations, because there are a lot of territories without electricity. Then they will have a chance to take these some kits or magic box, and they will have a chance to go to this dangerous place, for example, Hitro Park or Naftohaven, and turn on the pump and then turn on the dry machine and help people to repair in their flooded houses. It is a great chance to help us.
I
Thank
just
you.
want to
Go
make a comment a bit about how a lot of this came about, and want to kind of thank some of our early partners and just give all NGOs and who might be either on the webinar or who will be watching this when it's recorded on our YouTube channel, but that just how tech companies like us and NGOs can work together to pioneer change. We had some early sponsorship from Smart Aid International and then Global Empowerment Mission to bring the first units into Ukraine. We did some quick learning. They took a risk with us, and we had to, we took that learning, and then a wonderful NGO out of California called Direct Relief actually sponsored the first 7 sun kits along with LMV missions, the next 3, and we used that initial sponsorship to develop the product and put it to test. And then everybody just, then Rotary came in and others, and this is just how there's an interesting I think symbiosis, I would comment on, between NGOs and tech companies like ours, where we can, we don't always know where it leads, but when you take that leap with a tech company like ours, that's committed to Ukraine, we've developed something, and now SunKit, we're starting to build it in Ukraine, and we actually have first customers in Africa, in the film industry, and other things. So there's it just builds on it, and I just want to highlight this unique role that I've seen NGOs play. It's not just about today's donation, but even then, people who donate to those NGOs might not have an idea of the long-term effect that it has, but it does cascade and build. And so we're able to help Halyna today because of some of these, the passion of people like Heidi, and then also previously these NGOs that kind of helped us develop some of these solutions.
Thank you, Paul. And in follow-up to that, I just wanted to commend you, Paul, and New Use Energy for taking a leap into a whole new sector, into the world of hospitals and surgery and the OR, a world I'm familiar with, but you probably were not before this. And so in this crisis and catastrophe that Ukraine is undergoing, you have taken a courageous leap to cross over into another sector of activity. So kudos to you. Heidi, I think you had your hand up, please.
I did. I really actually didn't have a question. I just wanted to ask Paul to further talk to us about the idea of resilience. We have, through our experience and our interactions with the Ukrainian people, seen how resilient they are. And if you could talk a little bit about the concept of empowering resilience in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with, I think, the concept of resilience overall, because it's a growing theme in the US as well. And when New Use Energy was founded by my partners and myself several years ago, we set out with this theme of resilience because we saw climate change events or weather events becoming worse and worse. And it's really the concept of being prepared and ready and able to withstand. Never in my dreams 2.5 years ago did I think that we would be providing resilience solutions and concepts in a war zone, but it applies. It's all about disasters and destruction. And a lot of what we're focusing on is community-based resilience. And that is, you can't always rely, we saw this after Hurricane Katrina, that the government's going to come in and solve your problems, that communities themselves have to be resilient. And one of the key problems is, energy, and the need for connectivity has grown so much in the situations after disasters. We have an NGO we work with in California, phenomenal guys. And they once told me, they said, people told them, I'll give up lunch. These are wildfire victims. They go, I'll give up lunch in return for connectivity. Okay, it's that important to survivors, okay, of things. And so we see this wave now of resilience. It covers a lot of different topics, all in the hierarchy of needs, if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but one of which nowadays more and more is energy. And we've seen time and time after disaster or war that supply chain is interrupted. You can't get gasoline for generator, or there are lineups like after Hurricane Ida 2.5 years ago 2 years ago in New Orleans, and there's lineups at gas stations. The gas stations themselves, as Dr. Dmytro said, don't have generators. So in Mykolaiv, they can't pump. Once they're out of gasoline, they're out of gasoline, or they can't even pump once the power goes down. And the power goes down there sometimes for 2-3 days at a time. So communities have to have these ability to be able to react and to take care of themselves. And that's what Halyna is doing, is that she's taking some of the donations we have and she's putting them into these points of invincibility. And what she has is self-perpetuating energy. So even when we aren't able to provide panels at first, she took the solar generators and had them working with a gas generator, where the gas generator would charge it for 2 hours and then run the battery generator for 22 hours. And they saved they literally spent only 1/12 of fuel. They didn't have to get as much fuel there. They didn't have to risk driving it over. So they cut that down dramatically. And I do want to emphasize, we do work with multiple power sources. Solar is just one of them, and it's a preferred source, because once that's one thing about an NGO or anybody making an investment into a solar generator, is that it will continue to provide that. The maintenance costs are just so dramatically lower than having to refill that gas tank, having to maintain it, having to change the oil, or having to change the generator out after 6 months of continual use. So our systems are actually based on residential off-grid solar technology, which means that they're using components that are designed for 10 to 15 years. I have a solar and battery system in my house, and it's operated already for 9 years, and it's provides continual backup power. And that very same battery and technology is what we use in our systems. And so, when you work and Halyna, these points of invincibility she's created, and people come and charge there, the resilience is, they know that it's a comfortable, safe place for them, especially if there's no noise, there's no danger of detection and everything. And that's part of that resilience equation as well. And it's about being ready for the next event. So for example, with Halyna, we installed the first 2 sun kits in points of invincibility in Kherson, not knowing that 6 weeks later, the floodwaters came to within 10 feet of our sun kits there. Okay, and I have these photos you provided, although we don't post them because of geolocation, but where the water came very, very close. We didn't know that was going to happen. And it expanded the need all of a sudden, where people started coming in from farther away to that point because they lost electricity for a very long period. As Halyna said, 22 substations, and then I think we're inundated. So that's a significant part of the power grid in Kherson. It's going to take a while to rebuild. And so that solar generator can work every day until that grid gets rebuilt. And that's resilience. Our vision is to eventually have enough people working with us where we can have thousands of points like this around Ukraine. For the next 10 to 15 years, that single unit is going to continue to function. They will run 4,000 cycles on those batteries. So I know that was a little long, but that's part of our passion, and we can't help it.
I'd like to add to that. I want to ask Halyna about those invincibility points, but also in that plan going forward, I think it would also be helpful for small businesses around the country and their resilience, as well as the community relief points. Halyna, can you please tell us a little bit more about what is an invincibility point and what happens there? People come there why do people come to an invincibility point?
People all the time go to the invincibility point because they will have a chance to have their, first of all, their humanitarian aids, and also they have a chance to have the internet there, to help with their tablets, phones, have the internet and communication with their relatives. And also they have a chance to have some medicine there as well, and to communicate to each other and to support, to help to each other, to watch TV, to listen to some news, because only there they have a chance to do it. And I want to add, maybe people don't know that Kherson, it's the warmest spot in our country. It is the sunniest spot in the south of Ukraine. We have 270 sunny days a year. It is very many days, and it is the sunniest territory. So as you see, only we need is some kits, our electro stations, magic box, and a sun, and really your help that we can realize all these.
Leda, I just want to comment. A question came in about how can you secure the panels. Our approach is that we do design our products to work with any solar panel. That's a lesson we learned after disasters, because you never know what's available. But we do, and many of our NGO partners, especially for the hospitals, purchase our sun tarp arrays. These are no glass, no frames. You can shoot them up and they will still provide current. They are very much preferred by Ukrainian military. We have units that use our sun tarps, and they say they won't touch glass panels because they reflect, they give off a lot of heat, and they're not, and they break. And so the technology is also that it's very easy to deploy in the daytime, take it in at night if you want to secure it. If you don't have a secure location on a roof or anything. It's also made to blend in more with the surroundings. You saw that one quick photo of the roof, and it was a white mat, you know, with a panel. So it is a very special technology. It does cost about 3 times more than a conventional panel, but you can walk on them. For example, they're very tough. And in a difficult operating environment, like you take a point of invincibility, they do want to secure the panel at night. They don't want to leave it out on the street. So they can literally put, it goes up to the 100-foot or 30-meter cable, and they can bring it out in the morning, put it in the sun, move it during the day if they want, and then bring it back where the sun moves. And they can put it in that best location, sometimes where you get good sun, but there's a tree that potentially blocks it from the Russian side and the like. So it gives you that, the portability gives you that ability to make the proper tactical decision at the site. And that is very unique to this type of solar panel or solar array.
Thank you. I also had a question. I had a question for donors who might like to know a little bit more about the value proposition of using the solar generators as opposed to fuel-based generators, and how long does it take to see that equal out in terms of ongoing costs of the alternative or the traditional type, where there's fuel maintenance, as Halyna described, the labor and the fluids that are needed to maintain the fuel-based generators.
I guess I have to
if you could,
feel
Paul,
that because I convinced Heidi of it some months ago. But the break-even model that we run in the US versus the Sun Kit is 770 hours, basically 30 days of operation, versus a quality Honda EU 2000 generator. In Ukraine, that's probably brought in by, or Europe brought in by about a third, because of the price of gasoline and diesel elevates that user cost. So it's going to run anywhere from 22 days of operation to 30 days. After that, you're basically you've intersected the investment cost because gas generators are cheaper upfront, and at that point you're basically not using it for free, but you're not having to fill up that tank anymore. So and I would also comment that you save about 20 to 22 pounds of carbon dioxide per gallon that's burned. So we are working with some clean energy groups for long-term effect, and they're interested in that also. But it's going to range, like I said, from 22 to 30 days of operation. And in general, we estimate versus a Honda generator, we have about a 5 times more longer useful life.
Thank you. And I have a question from Anna in the audience. What are the barriers to scaling the expansion of sun kits? Is it more supply side or demand side? Also, what can the US government and other bilateral institutions like the World Bank do to overcome these? Thank you.
Heidi, do you want to, well, maybe Heidi can take a first stab at that, because I think you know some of this.
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. What are the barriers to scaling the expansion of sun kits? Is it supply or demand side? And then also, what can governments and bilateral institutions do to overcome these barriers?
Heidi, maybe you can talk about the funding side.
Really, it's funding. We work really closely as soon as funds are raised. We have kind of benchmarks that and goals that we're looking at for funding, but the needs are so great. The demand is so great. So really, it's the funding. We work with Paul and his manufacturers and partners to get it there just as soon as the funding is available. So if we had larger bilateral funding, I mean, we've worked with Rotary clubs and districts, very grassroots, some private donors. We've been able to raise over $20,000 so far, but much more is needed. And so every donation is appreciated and well used, but more funding, definitely.
I'll comment on the supply side. We actually started by manufacturing the International Sun Kit for Ukraine in Germany. We moved it to Ukraine, so it's about us sourcing. We easily can, scaling the manufacturing is not an issue. And so, for us to scale it, working with the multilateral institutions, it's hasn't been our specialty in that they don't move as fast when it comes to technological change and the like. That's one of the reasons why I say NGOs have an amazing impact, because they can move fast, they can pioneer. We would love to work with more of those larger institutions. I do find, their ability to actually directly make an impact, they tend to be a little more tangential. They might like to loan money to a certain group, and then those guys maybe contract things out and the like. So, if anybody has any suggestions how better to work with the multinational financial institutions, we are talking to EBRD, we're talking to various US financial groups to scale it. There is a large learning curve, though, that I'll add. They understand utility scale solar. The problem with utility scale solar, they love to sponsor large, multi-megawatt projects. And, part of the challenge, I will say openly, I've been talking to USAID, and then a lot of their targets are set in gigawatts. Okay. And the issue is, when you sponsor, let's say, or you finance a large solar field, you are power generating, but you're not able to use that power locally. It just goes into the grid. Okay. I also feel they can be very vulnerable. Even wind can be vulnerable to Russian missile strikes. Distributed power, what we do, you have to aggregate and add a lot of them up together to reach those gigawatt goals that many of these large institutions have. So there is a disconnect. And distributed power, the difference is it makes a direct impact. It makes a direct impact within minutes of arriving on site. okay, because it's so easy to set up, and you change people's lives right away. And so there is a disconnect, I think, between those targets that are set by, in the gigawatt world versus the targets that we set, which is in terms of thousands of human lives being changed. And so that's, directly and immediately. And that concept of resilience and security that those tens of thousands of people deserve to have, in my mind. And a lot of it is also about energy storage. There still is a disconnect between, like I said, power generation, big windmill farms and big solar plants, and the ability for people to store and use electricity on a local level. It hasn't really permeated, I think, the international finance space to date, because large-scale energy storage is still in its early days, though it's rolling out, and it will hopefully change.
Thank you, Paul. We're a little bit over our time today, so I wanted to just ask if Halyna or Heidi would like to give any concluding remarks before I thank everyone and we conclude the webinar.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank everyone for attending. I wanted to share the GoFundMe campaign again. This is a tax-deductible donation through the Rotary Club of Evergreen Foundation. You can write checks, you can donate online through the GoFundMe page, and just share what you've heard. If this has moved you, if it's inspired you, share with others, and together we will make an impact through Power Up Ukraine, through our partners on the ground. We're here to empower them to provide resilience to the people of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And thank you, Halyna and Heidi, for joining us here today, and for all of our participants in the webinar for joining us. And I'd like to encourage anyone who would like to learn more or engage as a partner with New Use Energy in these endeavors to go ahead and contact the company, and especially larger institutions, as Paul mentioned. It would be wonderful to be working with government agencies and large diaspora organizations as well. Thank you everyone for coming, and please look for this webinar on the YouTube channel afterwards on the New Use Energy channel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Героям
Дякую.
слава.